The complete works of Swami Vivekananda, Volume 1, Section 4, Vedanta and Privilege. Lecture delivered in London. We have nearly finished the metaphysical portion of the Advaita. One point, and perhaps the most difficult to understand, remains. We have seen so far that, according to the Advaita theory, all we see around us and the whole universe, in fact, is the evolution of one absolute. This is called in Sanskrit as Brahman. The absolute has become changed into the whole of nature. But here comes the difficulty. How is it possible for the absolute to change? What made the absolute to change? By its very definition, the absolute is unchangeable. Change of an unchangeable would be contradictory. The same difficulty applies to those who give or believe in the personal God. For instance, how did the creation arise? It could not have arisen out of nothing. That would be contradictory. Something coming out of nothing can never be. The effects is the cause of another form. Out of the seed, the big tree grows. The tree is the seed, plus air, water taken in. And if there were any method of testing the amount of air and water taken to make a body of a tree, we should find that it is exactly the same as the effect the tree. Modern science has proved beyond doubt that it is so, that the cause is the effect in another form. The adjustment of the parts of the cause changes and becomes the effect. So, we have to avoid this difficulty of having a universe without a cause, and we are bound to admit that God has become the universe. But we have avoided one difficulty and landed in another. In every theory, the idea of God comes through the idea of unchangeability. We have traced historically how the one idea which we have always in the mind in the search for God, even in its crudest form, is the idea of freedom. And the idea of freedom and of unchangeability is one and same. It is free one alone, which never changes, and the unchangeable alone, which is free. For change is produced by something exterior to a thing or within itself, which is more powerful than the surroundings. Everything which can be changed is necessarily bound by certain cause or causes which cannot be unchangeable. Supposing God has become this universe, then the God is here and he has changed. And suppose the infinite has become the finite universe, so much of the infinite has gone, and therefore God is infinite minus the universe. A changeable God would be no longer God. To avoid the doctrine of pantheism, there is a very bold theory of the Vedanta. It is that this universe, as we know and think it, does not exist, that unchangeable has not changed, that the whole of the universe is merely appearance and not reality. And this idea of a parts and little beings and differentiation is only apparent, not the nature of the thing itself. God has not changed at all and has not become the universe at all. We see God as the universe because we have to look through time, space, and causation. It is the time, space, and causation that make this differentiation apparently but not really. This is very bold theory indeed. Now this theory ought to be explained a little more clearly. It does not mean idealism is the sense in which it is generally understood. It does not say that the universe does not exist. It exists. But at the same time, it is not what we take it for. To illustrate this, the example given by the Advaita philosophy is well known. In the darkness of night, a stump of a tree is looked upon as the ghost by some superstitious person, as a policeman by a robber, as a friend by someone waiting for his companion. And in all these cases, the stump of the tree did not change. But there are apparent changes, and these changes were in the minds of those who saw it. From the subjective side, we can understand it better through psychology. There is something outside of ourselves, the true nature of which is unknown and unknowable to us. Let us call it X. And there is something inside which is also unknown and unknowable to us. Let us call it Y. The knowable is a combination of X plus Y. And everything that we know, therefore, must have two parts: the X outside, and the Y inside. And the X plus Y is the thing we know. So every form of in the universe is partly our creation and partly something outside. Now what the Vedanta holds is that this X and this Y are one and the same. A very similar conclusion has been arrived at by some Western philosophers, especially by Herbert Spencer and some other modern philosophers, when it is said that the same power which is manifesting itself in the flower is welling up in my own consciousness. It is very same idea which the Vedantists want to preach, that the reality of the external world and the reality of the internal world are one and the same. Even the ideas of the internal and external existence by differentiation and do not exist in the things themselves. For instance, if we develop another sense, the whole world will change for us, showing that it is the subject which will change the object. If I change the external world changes, if I change the external world changes, the theory of the Vedanta therefore comes to this, that you and I are and everything in this universe are that absolute, not parts, but the whole. You are the whole of the absolute, and so are all others, because the idea of part cannot come into it. This division, this limitation are only apparent, not in the thing itself. I am complete and perfect, and I was never bound. Boldly preaches the Vedant. If we think you are bound, bound you will remain. If you know that you are free, free you are. Thus, the end and the aim of this philosophy is to let us know that we have been free always and shall remain free forever. We never change, we never die, and we never born. What are all these changes then? What becomes of this phenomenal world? This world is admitted as the apparent world bound by time, space, and causation, and it comes to what is called as vivar- Vivartavada, Vivartavad in Sanskrit, the evolution of nature and manifestation of absolute. The absolute does not change or re-evolve. In the little amoeba, it that infinite perfection latents. It is called amoeba from its amoeba covering, and from the amoeba to the perfect man, the change is not in what is inside. That remains the same, unchangeable, but the change occurs in the covering. There is a screen here and some beautiful scenery outside. There is some small hole in the screen through which we can only catch a glimpse of it. Suppose this hole begins to increase. As it grows larger and larger, more and more of the scenery comes into view, and when the screen has vanished, we come face to face with the whole of the scenery. This scene outside is the soul, and the screen between us and the scenery is Maya. It is time, space, and causation. There is a little hole somewhere through which I can catch only the glimpse of the soul. When the hole is bigger, I see more and more, and when the screen has vanished, I know that I am the soul. So, changes in the universe are not in the absolute, they are in nature. Nature evolves more and more until the absolute manifests itself. In everyone it exists. In some it is manifested more than in other. The whole universe is really one. The speaking of souls, to say that the one is superior to another has no meaning. In speaking of soul, to say that a man is superior to the animal or plant has no meanings. The whole universe is one. The plant, the obstacle to soul manifestation, is very great. In animals, a little less, and in men, still less. In cultured, spiritual man, still less, and in a perfect man, it has vanished altogether. All our struggles, exercise, pain, pleasure, tears, smile, all that we do and think tend towards the goal. The tearing up of the screen, making the big hole and thinner the layer that remain between the manifestation and the reality behind. Our work, therefore, is not to make the soul free, but to get rid of the bondage. The sun is covered by the layers of clouds, but remains unaffected by them. The work of the wind is to drive the cloud away, and more the cloud is appeared, the more the light of the sun appears. There is no change whatsoever in the soul. Infinite, absolute, eternal knowledge, bliss, and existence. Neither can there be birth or death for the soul. Dying and being born, reincarnation, and going to heaven cannot be for the soul. These are different appearances, different mirages, different dreams. In a man who is dreaming of this world, now dreams of the wicked thoughts and wicked deeds. After a certain time, the thought of that very dream will produce the next dream. He will dream that he is in the horrible place, being tortured. The man who is dreaming good thoughts and good deeds after the period of dream is over will dream he is in a better place, and so on from the dream to dream. But the time will come when the whole of the dream will vanish. To every one of us, there must come a time when the whole universe will be found to have been a mere dream. When we shall find that soul is infinitely better than its surrounding. In this struggle through what we call our environments, there will come a time when we shall find that these environments were almost zero in comparison with the power of the soul. It is only a question of time, and time is nothing in the infinite. It is a drop in ocean. We can afford to wait and be calm. Consciously or unconsciously, therefore, the whole universe is going towards the goal. The moon is struggling to get out of the sphere of attraction of other bodies and will come out of it in a long run. But those who consciously strive to get free hasten the time. One benefit from this theory we practically see is that the idea of a real universal love is only possible from this point to the view. All are our fellow passengers, our fellow travelers of all life, plant, animals, not only by my brother's man, but my brother's brute, my brother's plant, not only my brother the good, but the brother the evil, my brother the spiritual, my brother the wicked. They are all going to the same goal. All are the same stream. Each is hurrying towards the infinite freedom. We cannot stay the course. None can stay it. None can go back. However, we or he may try. He will be driven forward, and in the end, he will attain to freedom. Creation means the struggle to get back to freedom, the center of our being, whence we have been thrown off, as it were. The very fact that we are here shows that we are going towards the center, and manifestation of this attraction towards the center is what we call love. The question is asked, from what does the universe come? In what does it remain? To what does it go back? And the answer is, from love it comes, in love it remains, and go back in goes into love. Thus we are in a position to understand that whether one likes it or not, there is no going back for anyone. Everyone has to get to the center. However, he may struggle to go back. At if we struggle consciously, knowingly, it will smooth the passage. It will lessen the jar and quicken the time. Another conclusion we naturally arrive at from this is that all knowledge and all power are within and not without. What we call nature is a reflecting glass. That is all the use of nature, and all knowledge is this reflection of the within on this glass of nature. What we call powers, secret of nature, and forces are all within. In the external world are only a series of changes. There is no knowledge in nature. All knowledge comes from the human soul. Man manifests knowledge, discovers it within himself, which is pre existing through eternity. Everyone is the embodiment of knowledge. Everyone is the embodiment of internal bliss and internal existence. The ethical effect is just the same as we have seen elsewhere with regard to equality. But the idea of privilege is the bane of human life. Two forces, as it were, are constantly at work, one making caste and other breaking caste. In other words, the one making for privilege and other breaking down privilege. And whenever privilege is broken down, more and more light and progress comes to the race. This struggle we see all around us. Of course, there is first the brutal idea of privilege, that of the strong over the weak. There is the privilege of wealth. If a man has more money than another, he wants a little privilege over those who have less. There is the still sub, subtler and more powerful privilege of intellect. Because one man knows more than others, he claims more privilege. And the last of all, and worst, because the most tyrannical is the privilege of spirituality. If some person think they know more of spirituality of God, they claim a superior privilege over everyone else. They say, come down and worship us, you common herds. We are the messengers of God, and you have to worship us. None can be Vedantist and at the same time admit of privilege to anyone, either mental, physical, or spiritual. Absolutely no privilege for anyone. The same power is in every man, the one manifesting more, the other less. The same potentiality is in everyone. Where is the claim to privilege? All knowledge is in every soul, even in the privileged, or even in the most ignorant. He has not manifested it, but perhaps he has not had the opportunity. The environment were not perhaps suitable to him. When he gets the opportunity, he will manifest it. The idea that one man is born superior to another has no meaning in the Vedanta. That between two nations, one superior and another inferior has no meaning whatsoever. Put them in the same circumstances and see whether the same intelligence comes out or not. Before that, you have no right to say that one nation is superior to another. And has the spirituality, no privilege should be claimed there. It is privilege to serve mankind, for this is the worship of God. God is here in all these human souls, in the souls of men. What privilege can man ask? There are no special messengers of God, never were, never can be. All beings, great or small, are equally manifested of God. The difference is only in the manifestation. The same eternal message can have which has been eternally given comes to them little by little. The eternal message has been written in the heart of every being. It is there already, and all are struggling to express it. Some, in suitable circumstances, express it a little better than others, but as barriers of the message, they are all one. What claims to superiority is there? The most ignorant man, the most ignorant child, the great messenger of God, has any that ever existed, and has great has any that are yet to come. For the infinite message is there imprinted once for all in the heart of every being. Wherever there is a being, that being contains the infinite message of the Most High. It is there. The work of Advaita, therefore, is to break down all these privileges. It is hardest work of all. Curious to say, it has been less active than anything anywhere else in the earth or land of the land of its birth. If there is any land of privilege, it is the land which gave birth to this philosophy. Privilege for spiritual men as well as for the man of birth. There they have not so much privilege for money. That is one of the benefit I think. But privilege for birth and spirituality is everywhere. Once a gigantic attempt was made to preach Vedanta ethics, which succeeded to a certain extent for several hundred years. We know historically that those years were the best times of the nation. I mean the Buddhistic attempt to break down privilege. Some of the most beautiful epithic addresses addressed to Buddha and that remain there are: Thou the breaker of caste, destroyer of the privilege, preacher of equality to all beings. So he preached this one idea of equality. Its power has been misunderstood to a certain extent in the brotherhood of Shamanas, where we have find that hundreds of attempts have been made to make them into the church with superior and inferior. You cannot make much of the church when you tell people that they are all gods. One of the good effects of Vedanta has been freedom of religious thought, which India enjoyed throughout all times of its history. It is something to glory in. That is it, the land where there was never a religious persecution, where people are allowed perfectly freedom in religion. This practical side of Vedanta morality is necessary as much today as it were ever was, more necessary perhaps than it were was. For all these privileged claiming has become tremendously intensified with the extension of knowledge. The idea of God and the devil, or Ahur Mazda Ahriman, has a good deal of poetry in it. The difference between God and devil is in nothing except in selfishness and non-selfishness. The devil knows as much as God, is as powerful as God, only he has no holiness. That makes him a devil. Apply the same idea to the modern world. Excess of knowledge and power without holiness makes human being devils. Tremendous power is being acquired by the manufacture of machines and other appliances, and privileges claimed today as it never has been claimed in the history of the world. That is why the Vedanta want to preach against it, to break down this tyrannism over the soul of man. Those of who you have studied the Gita will remember the memorable passage. He who look upon the learned Brahmin, upon the cow, he who looks upon the learned Brahmin upon the cow, the elephant, the dog, or the outcast with the same eye, or the outcast with the same eye. Indeed is the sage and the wise man. Even in this life, he has conquered relative existence, whose mind is firmly fixed on this sameness. For the Lord is one, and the same to all, and the Lord is pure. Therefore, those who have the sameness for all are pure and are said to be living in God. This is the gifts of Vedanta morality. This sameness for all. We have seen that it is a subjective world that rulers the objective. That it is the subjective world that rules the objective. Change the subject, and the object is bound to change. Purify yourself, and the world is bound to be purified. This is one requires to be taught now more than ever before. We are becoming more and more busy about our neighbors and less about ourselves. The world will change if we change. If we are pure, the world will become pure. The question is why I should see evil in others. I cannot see evil unless I be evil. I cannot see misery unless I am weak. Things that used to make me miserable when I was a child do not do so now. The subject changed, so the object was bound to change. So, says the Vedant, all these things which we call causes of misery and evil, we shall laugh at when we arrive at that wonderful state of equality, that sameness. This is what is called as Vedant attaining to freedom. The sign of approaching that freedom is more and more of this sameness and equality. In misery and happiness, the same is in success and defeat. The same such mind in merely the state of freedom. The mind cannot be easily conquered. Mind that rise into the waves at the approach of every little thing, at the slightest provocation or danger. In what a state they must be. What to talk of greatness of or spirituality when this changes comes over the mind. This unstable condition of the mind must be changed. We must ask ourselves how far we can be attacked upon by the external world and how far we can stand on our own feet in spite of all the forces outside us. When we have succeeded in preventing all the forces in the world from throwing us off our balance, then alone we have attained to freedom and not before. That is salvation. It is here and now, nowhere else. It is this moment. Out of this idea, out of the fountain head, all beautiful streams of thoughts have flowed over upon the world, generally misunderstood in their expressions, mis- eh, generally misunderstood in their expressions, apparently contradicting each other. We find hosts of brave and wonderful spiritual soul in every nation, taking to cave or forest for meditation, serving their connection with the external world. This is the one idea. And on the other hand, we find bright, illustrious beings coming into society, trying to raise their fellow men, the poor, the miserable. Apparently, these two methods are contradictory. The man who lives in the caves, apart from his fellow being, smiles contemptuously upon those who are working for the regeneration of their fellow men. How foolish, he says. What work is there? The whole world of Maya will always remain the world of Maya. It cannot be changed. If I ask one of our priests in India, do you believe in Vedanta? He says, that is my religion. I certainly do. That is my life. Very well. Do you admit the equality of all life and sameness in everything? Certainly I do. The next moment, when a low caste man approached the priest, he jumps to one side of the street to avoid that man. Why do you jump? Because his very touch would have polluted me. But you were just saying we are all same and you admit there is no difference in soul. He says, "Oh, that is the theory only for the householders. And when I go into the forest, then I will look upon everyone as the same. You ask one of your great men in England, a great birth and wealth, is he believe as a Christian in the brotherhood of mankind, since all came from God? He answers in the affirmative. But in the 5 minutes, he spouts something uncomplimentary about the common herd. Thus, it has been a theory only for several thousand years and never came into practice. All understand it, declare it as true, but when we ask them to practice it, they say it will take millions of years. There can be a certain king. There was a certain king who had a huge number of countries, and each one of these countries declared he was ready to sacrifice his life for his master, and that he was the most sincere being ever born. In a course of time, a sannyasi came to the king. The king said to him that there never was a king who had no many sincere counteror as the as he had. The sannyasi smiled and said he did not believe that. The king said the sannyasi could test it if he liked. So the sannyasi declared that he would make a great sacrifice by which the king's reign would be extended very long, with the condition that there should be made a small tank into which courtier, each one of of his courtier should pour a pincher of milk in the dark of night. The king smiled and said, "Is this the test?" And he asked his courtiers to come to him and told them what was to be done. They all expressed their joy, assent to the proposal, and returned. In the dark death of night, they came and emptied this pitcher into the tank. Their pitcher into the tank. But in the morning, it was found full of water only. The courtiers were assembled and questioned about that matter. Each one of them had thought there would be many pitchers of milk, that his water would not be detected. Unfortunately, most of us have the same idea and we do not share the work as did the courtiers in the story. There is so much ideal of equality, say the priest, that my privilege will not be detected. So say our rich man, so say the tyrant of every country. There is more hope for the tyrannized over than for the tyrant. It will take a very long time for a tyrant to arrive at freedom, but less time for the others. The cruelty of the fox is much more terrible than the cruelty of lion. The lion strikes a blow and is quiet for some time afterward, but the fox tries persistently to follow this prey, never misses an opportunity. Priestcraft is in its natural nature cruel and heartless. That is why religion goes down where priestcraft arises. Says the Vedant, we must give up the idea of privilege, then will religion come. Before that, there is no religion at all. Do you believe that what Christ said? Sell all that thou hast and give to poor. Practical quality, practical equality there. No trying to torture the text, but taking the truth as it is. Do not try to torture text. I have heard it said that was preached only to the handful of Jews who listened to Jesus. The same argument will apply to other things also. Do not torture texts. Dare to face truth as it is. Even if we cannot reach to it, let us confess our weakness. But let us not destroy the idea. Let us hope that we shall attain to it sometime and strive for it. There it is. Sell all that thou hast and give the poor and follow me. Thus, trampling on every privilege and everything in us that works for privilege. Let us work for knowledge which will bring the feeling of sameness towards all mankind. You think that because you talk a little more polished language, you are superior to the man in the street. Remember that when you are thinking of this, you are not going towards freedom, but are forging a fresh chain for your feet. And above all, if the pride of spirituality enters into you, woe unto you. It is the most awful bondage that ever existed. Neither can wealth nor any other bondage of human heart bind the soul so much as this. I am purer than others is the most awful idea that can enter into human heart. In what sense are you pure? The God in you is the God in all. If you have remember that when you are thinking this, you are not going towards freedom, but are forging a fresh chain for your feet. And above all, if the pride of spirituality enters into you, who unto you. The pride of spirituality enters into you, who up to you. It is the most awful bondage that ever existed. Neither can wealth nor any other bondage of the human heart binds the soul so much as this. I am purer than others is the most awful idea that can enter into human heart. In what sense are you pure? The God is in you is the God in all. If you have not known this, you have known nothing. How can there be difference? It is all one. Every being in the temple of the Most High. If you can see that, good. If not, spirituality has yet to come to you.